Keeping with our theme for this month, Remember Presentations, it's my privilege to introduce one of our own, Jerry Kindle. Jerry is retired from the Navy after serving 31 years. His last tour was as Command Master Chief of Naval Air Station, Pensacola. Born in Gainesville, Florida, he enlisted on active duty in September of 1978. His sea duty included tours aboard USS Kittiwake, Piedmont, Simon Lake, Yellowstone, USS Eisenhower, Grasp, USS Trenton, and USS Mesa Verde. He still walks like he's at sea after all that. His short tours include the Navy bridge at Naval Air Station Jacksonville. He assures me he was not an inmate. Mobile Inshore and Undersea Warfare Unit 207 Jacksonville. Naval Computers and Telecommunications Area Master Station in Norfolk. Fleet Technical Support Center Norfolk and NES Pensacola. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Education specializing in curriculum development and a Master's of Business Administration specializing in Human Resource Management. Jerry has been awarded the Meritorious Service Medal, the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, in addition to other campaign and unit awards. While serving as the Command Master Chief of the pre-commissioning crew of the USS Mesa Verde, the ship received all the Navy's flagship awards for outstanding community service: Project Good Neighbor, Environmental Stewardship, Health, Safety, Fitness, Campaign Drug-Free, and the Navy's Golden Eagle Award for Retention. He's the proud father of 6 children, all grown, and the grandfather of 9. He's a member of the Pensacola Chapter of the Navy League, a member of the Destin Chambers Military Affairs Committee, member of the Pensacola Chambers Program and Events Committee, and he's active in our Rotary Club. Please welcome the CEO of the American Red Cross of Northwest Florida, Jerry Kindle.
Thank you, Jerry. So Jerry asked me, said, "Hey, can you talk about hurricane preparedness?" And my first thought was, wow. If I look around this room, y'all might know more about it than I do. You've probably been through it a lot here. So I said, well, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit and some programs that we have, and I'll just talk about all the cool things Red Cross does. I have some cool Red Cross stories, but we agreed to all that before it rained a month ago. So I'll talk about a little bit of that, what we've done in the last month, and leave some room for questions. I got pamphlets on the table. Well, we do tear sheets on about everything, and so if you just got to have every little word about hurricane preparedness, grab a tear sheet, and if you want to critique it, these have dual purposes. You can make sure we didn't miss anything, and if you can't read it, go see an eye doctor. Okay, so anyway, I do want to talk about Ready Rating. It's a program we have for businesses in hurricane preparedness, and it's the website's readyrating.org. It's our website, and it does have all the tear sheets for any disaster, whether it's a tornado, earthquake, flooding, hurricane, tropical storms, and about a dozen others. It's a great resource. But the cool thing about this site is that it has an assessment. So you sign up for free. You take the online assessment. It gives you the red, yellow, green light, whether or not the answer is yes. It's a 15-minute assessment. And it grades you, and then it has tools where you can help build for a business. Now the theory is that businesses have a hard time in disasters. After Ivan, I think there's a statistic that about 60% of the affected businesses had a hard time opening back up or went out of business soon thereafter. And so if a business has a plan and can take care of the business, then they start getting the employees to understand the plan, taking care of the employees, and then to help their community. So that's the concept of Ready Rating, and the resources are all downloadable and free. So that is my hurricane brief. So I want to talk about the flooding a little bit. So there's a little. I think we're going to call this a 500-year flood. There's a lot of terminology for a 100-year flood, but I don't know that they could have made a system to hold the amount of water that just fell in that short amount of time, or that we can afford to build it. I will tell you this, from in the community, there's a lot of agencies that all work together in the background to deliver the service. The county worked a lot of overtime. All the partner agencies. A lot of times, people who aren't doing it day to day might see the different nonprofits that deliver human services as competitors, but frankly, we all work together in the background to make sure that we help each other and we help the client. And whether that's Salvation Army, whether that's Rescue Mission, whether that's Red Cross, United Way, Grace, all of us are trying to come to the table and make sure that the clients are taken care of. Now, for this rain, there was a lot of other agencies in addition to that. A whole bunch of church groups from the local churches, from churches from outside the area came in. They were doing all different things. And so when you pull all that together, there was just an enormous amount of stuff going on. So as we were out in the community trying to figure out what was going on, what need was there, we would see all these agencies and partners. And here, there's no better place to live right here in Pensacola, where the community comes together to take care of the community. But I will bore you just for a second with some numbers. So we did operate a shelter. There was a lot of folks that didn't have a place to stay. So before I go over what we kind of did over the last month, I do kind of want to talk about the difference between a rain and what we saw here for this event and an Ivan. Okay? One cool thing about hurricanes, if there's going to be a cool thing, is that the people in the preparedness world are working on those 7 to 10 days ahead of time and getting things ready, staged, and in place. They don't go to bed at night and get up waiting to try to figure out how to get the stuff where it's going to set things up. So you start off in a flood a couple of days behind because you just don't have the stuff where you need it logistically. And if you have infrastructure damage, then it's just that much harder. The other thing is, for Ivan, I think we had about 70, Red Cross had about 70 emergency response vehicles in the area, for the affected area for Ivan. And so it was massive power outages. There was no ATMs. The fast food stores weren't open. The grocery stores weren't open. So the people that needed help for an Ivan or a level 3 or a higher hurricane is everybody. Doesn't matter if you have money in your pocket or not, because you can't spend it anywhere. You just need to be fed. For this flood, there were pockets of that. There were places. There was an apartment building here, an apartment building here, a neighborhood here, where they needed to be fed, where there was no power, where there was no access, where their cars were flooded, they couldn't get out. But everybody else was okay, so there still was a place to go get fast food, a grocery store to go get stuff. And so what you see as service for emergency services, you don't see 70 emergency response vehicles. For this storm, we had 6 emergency response vehicles, and we were trying to get to the most affected areas. Now, I'm just speaking for Red Cross because, the Salvation Army had some emergency response vehicles, and there was a lot of other folks. So I just want to draw that correlation that in a time of a disaster, what the mission is to provide the emergency shelter, food, and clothing if necessary for that few days so people can figure out what they need and how to get it, whether that's through insurance or whether they apply for FEMA or whatever. So, and so that correlation is a healthy way to start off with what the expectation is. So for our operation, we did operate in 10 counties from here. So most of the damage was in Escambia County. Santa Rosa had a fair amount of damage, but as you move away from us, the amount of damage lessened in each county. And so, as a matter of fact, the 5th county didn't get declared until like 10 days after the Walton and Okaloosa got declared, which was after Escambia and Santa Rosa got declared. And so, most of the service providing numbers I'm going to give you are for Escambia and Santa Rosa, but even most of those are from Escambia. So we operated 9 shelters, and that accounted for almost 900 shelter nights. And so that's the amount of people that rotated through the shelter and stayed. We fed almost 5,000 meals, and we got over 22,000 snacks. We had 77 clients through our health services that we actually served. A lot of contacts, about a little over 500 contacts, but some of those didn't actually need health services. About 77 did. And we had over 100 that needed mental health services. So we do a damage assessment. A lot of people ask me why that is. In order for us to determine how many caseworkers to bring in, how many other types of things that we need to bring in, we kind of do our own damage assessment. So we assessed a little over 2,200 homes in these counties. And out of those, if you go by the FEMA guideline, about 1,100 of those were enough to make it major and above for FEMA. We had an enormous number of casework contacts. We had about 20 caseworkers here at the peak. Out of those, we actually, a contact is when you do an intake and someone tells you they had 2 inches of water in their house and they don't have any needs. We're not going to call that a case. We'll call that a contact. So we have over 200, it looks like it's going to be over 250 actual cases. That's where there was referrals and our assistance given. Because we still can give assistance to folks, even if there's a FEMA declaration, depending on what FEMA gives them or whether they get denied and what their needs are. And that's just basic back to pre-disaster situation to try to get them through for that emergency period. We provided, I don't know if you've seen one of our cleanup kits. Red Cross cleanup kits has a couple of different kinds of brooms, a mop, bleach, soap, bucket, sponge, scrub brush, plastic bags, all the rubber gloves, all the kind of things you need to start cleaning out your house. We gave out about 1,500 of those. And we gave out about 22,000 other bulk distributed items. That's whether that's rakes, shovels, gloves, coolers, tarps. And so that's a fair amount of bulk distribution stuff for an area that a lot of people went back to work after a day or two. And so, as a matter of fact, this weekend we were still trying to get the kind of things idled down. We call that moving into recovery, because we're going to be around with the other partners, and recovery is kind of where we shift from case work to case management, where all the caseworkers from different agencies come together. And we look at the people that didn't really get, they still have a problem with permanent housing, or they have a problem with even temporary housing. The emergency is over, but they didn't get their things solved, and so we get together and compare notes and see what resources we can figure out to bring to the table or refer them to. The big part of recovery is we have a network that Red Cross opens up, and all the different agencies can report their cases in. So as a service delivery site, somebody comes in and says, I still didn't get help, FEMA denied me, I need this. You can pull that person up and see who's already helping or talk to them, and those case notes are already there. I'm going to take... So some of the things that so there's still a lot of opportunity for help, and now we're fixing to start our staging for hurricane season. So before I open it up for questions, I just want to talk a bit about a couple other things that we stay very busy on, and that's house fires. That's the busiest thing any Red Cross chapter does. Now we're down here where we have a fair amount of tropical action, but all over the country it's not the case. Some places they have tornadoes. But every chapter, the #1 mission is house fires. In the first 3 months of this year, we responded to, in just our 4 counties, 62 house fires. And so you just kind of do the math. We normally hit about 150 to 200 a year. So it was a busy winter. The weather just didn't help, I guess. And the second thing is we're very blessed around here to have such a large military concentration. and a very large concentration of military families. And so what that means to us is that our second big full-time job, 24 hours a day, is service to armed forces. Because we do emergency messaging when somebody has an emergency or death, or a baby's being born in a family. We're the agency that connects, that verifies that in a hospital and connects it to the military through their message system. What that means locally is that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we have caseworkers that take the intake. But locally, what we do is every family that lives in our 4 counties gets a follow-up to make sure their needs were met. And that's 1,000 cases that's worked as a follow-up from our offices. And so, a funny story, I was telling that story one day into a little Kiwanis club, and this old retired Army guy, I think he wasn't retired, I think he did 4 or 5 years in the Army. He said, well, I've never seen Red Cross. I don't know Red Cross doing emergency messages. And I said, well, the first time, and I told one of my Red Cross stories, I got 4 or 5 pretty cool ones. I said, the first time I ever got engaged with Red Cross, I was 17 and I was in boot camp. And for those of you who can relate, I got called to the company commander's office in boot camp. That's not a good thing. And so here I go walking into the company commander's office, and there's this lady with a Red Cross vest on, and she says, Kendall, call your mother. And so back then we did health and wellness messages. If somebody didn't keep in contact, they would just, Red Cross send a message to command and say, did it? Call your mom. So, you know, I've only been with Red Cross, it's going to be 5 years next month. So just put that in reference. They hold on to you a little bit more than an aircraft carrier because I only did 50 months on the Eisenhower. And so, I want to open up for questions, particularly if it's about, any question, but particularly about the flood or how things going or our way forward.
When you have an unexpected event such as the flood, you have people, you mentioned churches coming in. Who, if anyone, coordinates that?
Well, now that's a good question. So he said, who coordinates all the different activities coming in, all the different volunteers? So at the Emergency Operations Center for the county, there's ESF groups, and so if the job gets big enough, they stay fully stood up 24/7. And so one of the ESF codes, we do feeding and sheltering and housing. So and each code does a different thing. So there's one that says donations and volunteers, and so if it's requested for help, they'll stand up a volunteer reception center and process it through. But that didn't happen. So the second way it happens is that they all come in on autopilot because their own faith base for the churches, the church they're affiliated with here hosts them, and they kind of come in. So if the area's not devastated, so their church that can host them here has power and can take care of them, and they kind of come in. And then what happens is that, fortunately, we have a very strong United Way, and through that 211 system, the 211 system is a referral system. So you call 211, they tell you who to call. But for this, they did a lot more than that. For this, they tried to coordinate and keep us all on the same page, telling us what everybody else was doing and sharing information with all of us. And so that kind of gave us all the map of what was going on in the area, so that when someone called us, we can say, we can help you with this, and this team can take the mud out of your house. So if it had been a hurricane, we would have probably stood up the volunteer reception center, and that code would have took care of it. But in this case, the two major efforts was United Way, and the county stood up an outreach program to help people get registered for FEMA, because with like one DRC wasn't going to be enough. But that outreach program was doing a lot of connecting the dots as well. And there was several of us that was on that committee and meeting trying to stay plugged in to help them resource them.
As a result of Ivan and many other hurricanes back 10 years ago, whenever we were statewide, and I think through FEMA as well, mitigation, we have the rebuild also coming in. We can basically your house mitigated for the next summer. Do you see any effort like that as a result of the
some of that will happen. I think there's some mitigation that we talk about in big scale, long term. Like there's an apartment building that flooded 2 years ago, that flooded again this year, and the county may help and give them trade property with them, and FEMA may buy their building from them so they can demolish it or something. So there's some of those things going on that they have programs where you plug into this long term. And I think that there would be some, through the public assistance, opportunity for the county to mitigate some of the, maybe the drainage, the infrastructure stuff and mitigate it. But I don't know other than that.
I got to do this. If you're old enough to remember hearing the radio broadcast on December 7th, 1941, stand up, if you can. If you remember, I think it was Joseon Reservoir, if you can remember that battle, stand up. That's Korea. If you can remember the Battle of Khe Sanh, stand up, Vietnam. Now you guys keep standing. And if you can remember the Battle of Fallujah, stand up. If you've ever been in the military, stand up. Thank you for